Washington, member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. Let us just ask you, make it crystal clear here, based on what you've seen and what you know now, did the president obstruct justice?
So I think it's certainly enough evidence has been presented to be a topic worthy of investigation and following up. I noted that Senator Weinstein said on one of the talking shows over the weekend that she thought the Senate Judiciary Committee ought to take it up. I think the House Judiciary Committee ought to take it up as well. But I think the more important, the more essential point here is really what this pattern is. If you go back to January when the president completely discounted the unanimous assessment of the Intelligence Committee that Russia had interfered in our elections. He called it a hoax. And then over the weekend, he claimed that the reputation of the FBI was completely in tatters. This is a man, frankly, who just does not have much regard for the rule of law. That's what's at work here.
Well, let me ask you about the rule of law and impeachment proceedings and articles of impeachment, if they were to even be brought by the House. The president's lawyers, outside attorney John Dowd this morning, told Axios this, quote, "The president cannot obstruct justice because he's the chief law enforcement officer under the Constitution's Article 2 and has every right to express his view of any case." Now, history would tell us that that is not the case. How do you see it?
Well, I'm not sure that it should be a surprise to any of us that there's not a lot of regard for history in the by the current occupant of the White House. And I would remind you that one of the 4 articles of impeachment filed against President Nixon was, in fact, obstruction of justice. So whether or not he is above that, as he asserts, and I disagree with, I know he's not above impeachment proceedings.
And you're not calling for those right now, though, just to be clear.
Thank you, John, for allowing me to clarify. That's true. I think, at least insofar as our work on the House Intelligence Committee is concerned, I think it's important that we drive to a conclusion. There are other efforts underway, and frankly, most notably, Bob Mueller's.
Right.
So you said this weekend on CNN, and you've been talking about this, that the plea deal by Michael Flynn could be the beginning of the end of the Trump administration. So explain that to us.
Well, I think that's exactly correct. There's now just one thin membrane separating the President of the United States from Bob Mueller's investigation. He's now indicted or reached plea bargain agreements with, count them, 4 members of the Trump administration or the campaign, 2 of whom held very high positions. Mr. Manafort, after all, chaired the campaign, and General Flynn was, of course, the national security advisor, inarguably the highest level security position in all of federal government. We know as well, according to open sources, that Bob Mueller is in the White House interviewing Hope Hicks, if reports are correct, and Jared Kushner and others. So he's in the White House. We'll see where this goes.
But your words, I mean, potentially the beginning of the end for the Trump administration, a thin membrane, that's going pretty far, isn't it? I mean, is it not just as plausible that Flynn, for example, the latest guilty plea in all of this, could have been operating independent of the knowledge of the president?
No, and in fact, the plea bargain agreement makes specific reference to the fact that he was not. What's not plausible is if this does not go farther. Whether or not it reaches the president remains to be seen, but it's not at all plausible that this doesn't go farther. Look, it just defies the straight face test that Bob Mueller would have entered into a plea bargain deal with General Flynn on this one felony count. And let's remind ourselves, this is a felony, which he has agreed to, subject up to 5 years imprisonment in jail. It defies the straight face test to think that he did that in and of itself for no other reason. We all know what this is about. This is about flipping General Flynn, period, full stop.
And General Flynn is now a cooperating witness and convicted felon. He has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. You're going to have Donald Trump Jr. coming to testify before your committee, behind closed doors this week. Unfortunately, we'd love to see it because we'd love to know what he has to say. What questions do you have for him? At least what questions that you can share with us do you have for him?
So, John, we've been pretty good about neither confirming nor denying the people that are coming before us. Of course, according to open sources, that Donald Trump Jr. is supposed to be coming in this week. If that were the case, John, I think the obvious questions that would be put to him are the same that are on all Americans' minds. Namely, tell us more about that June meeting in Trump Tower last year at which the Russian national came offering dirt on Hillary Clinton. Tell us more about that. Tell us more about all that you know. As a matter of fact, it's back to the future. We're back to the Watergate era in Senator Howard Baker's famous question, what did you know and when did you know it?
Key question. Congressman, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, the United States is conducting huge drills